Time for our cash tag segment. For that, let's bring in Andy Swan. He's a co-founder at Likefolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy.
Thank you.
All right, so we got a good one to talk about to kick off the week. Apple. Investors haven't been too happy with this one. It seems like some of the data that's been coming out, slowing sales. I heard they cut prices in China by $70 on its iPhone. I mean, do you guys have data supporting maybe the pullback that we've seen? I mean, the stock just was off all-time highs in December.
Yeah, our data supports the run that we saw in 2023. A caveat here, Likefolio is not going to have a lot of insight into consumer demand in China or the pricing that's going on in China. We typically focus on English speaking, but where we are strong, we see Apple very strong. We see mentions up 21% year over year. Web visits are accelerating at plus 5% year over year. All the kind of things you want to see out of a mega company like Apple. You're not going to ever really see 100% growth out of this name. It's just too large, too many products. The law of large numbers starts to come in. But the one thing I will say that is a little bit concerning is the consumer happiness levels around Apple's products, and especially the Apple Watch. The bands on that watch, especially the Series 9 and Ultra 2, were banned late last year as a result of a patent dispute. And it looks like a new update, that will take away some of the blood oxygen reporting, will allow Apple to bypass this ban. But that really upset, a good portion of consumers who like that technology and want that patent dispute resolved as soon as possible so that they can have all of the features of their Apple Watch. But overall, I think Apple is doing what Apple does, and that is continuing to expand and defend its market share. Generally speaking, it still delights consumers, even though consumer happiness is down just a little bit. So we see Apple growing, just maybe not quite as fast as investors that were buying up the stock in November and December might have hoped.
Andy, isn't that the critical piece, though, is that we're watching a company that's far more mature than it was, even just a couple years ago. I mean, I just look at these products, when you look at the iPhone, which is still the critical piece to the Apple story, iteration to iteration, it's negligible difference, and it has been for several years now. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a win for consumers. The product's a better product. But it shifted from that discretionary item that you were willing to stand outside and wait for in the cold weather for those releases to something you replace when it breaks in more of a consumer staple camp. And so they have a solid business. It's just not really growing anymore. And it's growing in a different way. It's growing through expanding margin. It's growing through, when it can, increasing prices, not really through ingenuity anymore, which is really the history of Apple. So it's not that I see Apple as a bad company or anything like that, but as an entrepreneur, Andy, isn't this much more of a dividend value type of a company now? A behemoth of something that's just creating dollars for shareholders, not really changing the world like it was a decade ago.
Yeah, I think we could sum up your entire point there with, Steve Jobs is no more, and it shows. I think that's the kind of sad truth about Apple at this point. But, Apple has been innovative on the services side. I think that they've done a phenomenal job of monetizing the hardware network that they have in everyone's hands and homes and desks. I think they're doing a phenomenal job of that. I expect that to continue. So I think there is, some innovation beyond just financial innovation that is happening a little bit more behind the scenes that is very impressive. We also see, the MacBook replacement cycle coming up very soon. We're starting to see that in the data because everybody replaced those when COVID hit and they were stuck at home for school or work. We're coming up on that kind of 4 years, 3 to 4 years, 5-year cycle where people need to replace those. We're starting to see that come to fruition. But overall, I think you're right. This isn't a company that you stand outside and wait for the product anymore. This isn't a company where you look at someone's phone and you know which model it is like you used to. So that part of Apple, I'm not going to say it's dead, but it's certainly dormant.
Andy, looking at some of that data, the web visits up 5% year over year. They've got a new, that wearables, new products. It's not that innovative, but at the same time, is the key to this story for Apple is the margin growth on the services side, and then also that nobody's going to leave the Apple ecosystem anytime soon. So they've got that built-in base that they continue to expand on, and that would lead them back into growth. Is that how you guys see it at Likefolio?
Yeah, that's how we see it. The primary thing that we look at, is that consumer happiness level and that consumer, demand level, comparing the iPhone to Android devices. So as long as Apple is still the phone of choice in North America, and then kind of trickles out throughout the world where they can afford it, then Apple has dominant market position to monetize. And we don't see any change to that whatsoever. In fact, we see the iPhone ecosystem getting even stronger over the last couple of years, despite the lack of innovation. And so, Apple's kind of in a really, really sweet spot where they can just monetize what they have. They can almost increase margins at will. And so, until that story changes, I think that's going to hold true. But I think that the point is very real from a zoom out kind of decade long perspective. It is what is going to drive the next decade of innovation and excitement at Apple. We know what's going to drive the next few quarters, but we don't know what's going to really change the world. And I think that's a really good way to frame it. And so short term, we see this pullback as an opportunity. Long term, I agree that Apple may be more of a dividend buy it on dips type of value play than an innovative tech company that we used to think of it as.
And at the peril of those betting against Apple, they've proven so many wrong so many times. So that's another discussion. But I do want to get your thoughts on this Vision Pro, Andy. I mean, I don't think it's moving the dial at this point either way. But what does a successful launch of this product look like? What needs to happen for this not to be a kind of egg on the face moment like these VR, AR have been for so many companies?
Yeah, I really think it's going to be about ecosystem adoption. In other words, what type of applications are developed on this platform? Are software companies going to go to extreme lengths to produce something very cool for this new platform like they did for the iPhone when it came out? I don't see that because I don't think that the distribution is going to be as strong. But I do think that this will be a game-changing product compared to the Oculus and those kind of rudimentary designs. I think this has the potential to get into the hands of some very influential people, that have the money to spend. I think it's $3,500 or something like that for one of these. Very expensive, but if they can get it in the right people's hands and get the right software developers building on the platform, then I think a year from now, 18 months from now, we could be seeing a more consumer-friendly price point with a very proven, very well built out set of applications.
Yeah, I agree with you because that is a high price point. What's going to be available on it? I don't think people are going to buy it unless there's at least some things on there. All right, great discussion here, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, that's Andy Swan, co-founder at Likefolio, breaking down the data for us.